Hello, everyone. This is Jonathan Little, and I'm here today with the 41st episode of Weekly Poker Hand. Thank you very much for making it this far. And if you have not listened to the past episodes, definitely check them out on jonathanlittlepoker.com, or you can subscribe on iTunes. But on jonathanlittlepoker.com, you can actually go back and watch the videos of all of these. If you're not watching this on jonathanlittlepoker.com, you can see the full video version of these there instead of only the audio version at iTunes. So be aware of that. So in this hand, I have been focusing a lot recently on pinpointing my opponent's exact errors and getting well out of line to exploit them. And in this hand, I actually knew a lot about the player in the cutoff. He bets the turn with an extraordinarily tight range. So this is the type of player who raises pre-flop, continuation bets a lot on the flop, then plays super straightforward on the turn. And I've actually been discussing this concept a lot because it is a huge part of my newest book called Strategies for Beating Small Stakes Poker Tournaments. That is the #1 seller on Amazon in the poker and gambling section. So check that out if you have not already. And one of the main traits of small stakes poker players is they've read enough books to know they should be raising a lot pre-flop. They also read enough books and studied enough training material to know they need to be continuation betting a lot. But then they don't really know what to do on the turn in the river, especially once big bets come in. So a lot of players revert to playing very straightforwardly on the turn in the river. And if you can pinpoint a guy who is going to be playing in that manner, you can make pretty big folds with hands that are normally pretty strong. So in this hand, we are playing 250, 500 with a 50 ante, and it folds around to a guy in the cutoff who I know plays in this manner. I started with 23,000 chips. My opponent has me covered, so we are about 45 big blinds deep. The guy in the cutoff raises to 1,000, so a min raise. And I decided to call with ace-5 offsuit in the big blind. I think re-raising is perfectly fine if you think the opponent's going to fold a lot. But getting amazing pot odds, notice we were getting 1, 2, 3, 4, like 4.5 to 1 pot odds, which is fantastic. You don't have to win very often in that scenario. I don't really mind calling. If the opponent made it a little bit bigger pre-flop, I'd be a little bit more inclined to re-raise. So flop comes ace-10-6, which is great for me. Ace-10-6 rainbow. I check. The opponent bets 1,200, which I think most people are going to do with a lot of their range. And at this point, I think check raising would be a disaster because if my opponent has an ace, he's never folding, and most aces beat me. And if my opponent has something like Jack-10, he's probably not going to call a check raise anyways. So this is a fantastic hand to check call with and see what develops on the turn. So I do call. I don't think folding is an option either. Folding would be a bit too weak. Turns a 4, so now I lose to ace-4 as well. I check, and the opponent bets 3,600 into the 5,100 chip pot. And this is where the hand starts getting somewhat dicey because if I know my opponent's only betting the turn with top pair or better, I lose to all top pairs or better. It's very important to recognize whenever you have top pair bad kicker, you lose to top pair good kicker. And if that is almost all of your opponent's range, that or two pairs or sets, I have a very easy fold on the turn. And I think a lot of players simply refuse to fold top pair on the turn. But if you know for a fact, which I did in this scenario, that my opponent was only betting the turn with a tight range, and maybe a tight range is even something like pocket jacks or better. So maybe he is bluffing you sometimes with the worse hand. You should still fold in this spot because the vast majority of your opponent's range is going to be top pair, two pairs, or sets. And against that range, I am just in absolutely terrible shape. So I do fold. And fortunately for me, my opponent decided to show me I made a good fold. He had the ace-queen and decided to let me know that I played well. But this is a spot where I think a lot of people will make the error of calling the flop, calling the turn, and then folding the river. But if you know your opponent's going to play in a straightforward manner on the turn, just give him the pot. So thank you guys very much for watching. Before you leave, definitely check out my newest book. You can get it on Amazon. It's called Strategies for Beating Small Stakes Poker Tournaments. It is the bestseller in the poker and gambling section for all Kindle books, which I'm really excited about. And it's only $4.99. I wanted to make it as accessible as possible for you guys so that everyone could afford it and learn how to beat the small stakes games. Because if you study your opponents well in the small stakes games, there's absolutely no reason why you should not win if you work harder on your game and study diligently. So check that out. You can get that on Amazon. Thank you very much for watching, and I will talk to you next week.